When I started in the business of recruitment, we didn't have the internet. There wasn't anything called LinkedIn or Google. My first day as a headhunter, I was given about 20 minutes of training through a video on the history of search. And then I was put on a desk in the middle of a bullpen with about 10 other seasoned recruiters. And I was given a phone and a phone book. And my boss said, "You're going to work in environmental engineering. Go get some business." So at the end of my first day, I got a search assignment. And on the 30th day, I filled the job. Now that first day was a test. That first day was a test to see if I could actually pick up a phone. We had phones on a desk back then. And what that allowed me to do was to come back for a second day. The world was different then. As a headhunter, you had to have selling skills. You had to be able to do research. And I don't mean the kind of research where you flip on your computer and you Google somebody's name or somebody's company. I mean the kind of research that you had to find out the name of a company that was a competitor to your client, and then figure out the names of all their employees and then their titles. You had to figure out their phone numbers so you could call them. So how would you do that? Well, you'd go home and have dinner, and then you'd get on the phone about 8 o'clock at night and you'd raid their voicemail system. You'd have to figure out if it was a 2-digit code, a 3-digit code, or a 4-digit code. Then you'd have to go through every department. You have to write down all the names of the people. Sometimes they gave you their title. Sometimes they didn't give you their title. Then you'd have to call into the receptionist in the morning and figure out who it was. And then you'd have to call somebody that may be sitting next to the person that you really wanted. You have to interview that person and then call the person right next to them and act as if you never talked to the person right next to that guy. It was a very difficult world, but you developed great selling skills, which turned into great headhunting skills. And those are sorely lacking today. They're lacking in search firms. They're lacking in talent acquisition departments in almost every company in the country, because people don't have the rudimentary skills. It's like being a musician. No matter what your instrument is, when you go to grade school, they teach you the rudiments of your instrument, and then everything is built on layers of that. So I see tremendous amount of gaps in the skill set in recruiters that work in search firms and recruiters that work in companies in internal recruiting departments, because you can find out where people are today pretty easily. You can find a name and a title and a company and figure out an email address. And, for a lot of people, that stops there. They're not actually make a recruiting call. And I understand that. It's sort of the way of the world. But when push comes to shove in a very, very hectic and tight talent market, you need fundamental skills. You need rudimentary skills. And you need advanced skills that were built on years and years of a foundation of knowing what to do and how to do it and how to get to the right people. You see, a dog with a note in his mouth can get a search assignment today. So many companies are hard up to find people. But you really have to have a special skill set to be able to go after candidates that aren't looking for a job. They're called passive candidates. Why are they called passive candidates? Because they're busy focused and doing the job that they're being paid to do. And they're not out looking at advertisements. And they're not responding to emails. And they're not on LinkedIn scouring jobs every day or on job boards. There's 1 million job boards now. Those people that you really want to get are busy doing it for your direct competitor. And that's why you need a headhunter. That's why you need somebody like me who's been trained in hard times with no resources to figure out how to go find people and identify people and then invoke a dialogue with that person So you can't just call up somebody and pitch them a job. You don't even know if they're interested in making a transition. You've got to have a placement process, a search process. And most companies don't have a strategy to put that in place. And they really burden their hiring managers with nonsensical work. I mean, what hiring manager needs to take time out of his or her valuable day to screen 35 candidates, 34 of whom don't even fit the profile? I mean, it's just ridiculous what many recruiters and many internal talent acquisition people are asking their hiring managers to do. And it's not a skill set that comes natural to hiring managers. You know, they're a manager of a department because they're good at what they do. They have functional expertise. They're a subject matter expert. And then when you throw on the burden of having to identify, recruit, attract, interview, and hire candidates, well, you know, their 50-hour week becomes a 70-hour week. And so I just wanted to reach out today and talk a little bit about the historical perspective of the search business. And it was built on having true selling skills. And, you know, when I got a client and a search assignment, my fee was full fee. There was no negotiation. It was 1/3 of the compensation, not a penny less. There were no guarantees back then. So if the person quit or you fired him after 60 days, you had to re-up for another search assignment. And the other funny thing is that in my company, which was a national company called McCormick Group, we weren't allowed to send a resume. If a client asked to see a resume before an interview, my response was, well, Jim, he'll bring it with you to the interview. He'll bring it with him to the interview, excuse me. And you can see it then. I'll give you a verbal overview, but we're not faxing a resume. So we use fax machines then. We faxed contracts back then, but we didn't fax resumes. And now, I mean, that's almost unheard of. Now we do that. We do verbal dialogue, you know, description, candidate descriptions and so forth, and secure interviews all the time without our clients ever having seen a resume because they trust us to do a good job and interview the candidate. You know, we might take 2 to 6 hours with a candidate before we make a decision to present them. But when we present a candidate, they're fully vetted, they have legitimate reasons for making a transition, and they receive our stamp of approval, and we're saying, yes, this person could do the job, and they want to do the job. Now let's find out if they want to do it with you. So there are a lot of skills that are not present in the search equation today, either as an independent search firm or as a member of a talent acquisition team, you know, an internal recruiting organization. So my name is Bill Cebak. I'm a retained headhunter and executive search consultant, career coach. And if you'd like to know more about these types of skills that headhunters need desperately, give me a call, 561-225-3776. And I'd love to talk to you about it in more detail. Have a great day.